Kids have to go through puberty in order to be able to have kids.
And that's why we'll be invoking the Notwithstanding clause.
You just know it's a good sign when the government turns the comments off. Free speech where, diva? Hello, you stunning woman on the go. Welcome back to my channel. My name is David Day, and you are watching Dismantling Hate. Today, we are going to take a look at a video published by the Government of Alberta's YouTube channel.
If you don't become sexually mature, you can't have kids.
Featuring our favorite tyrant, Danielle Smith.
Prevents you from being able to have children.
Who in this video is wearing red, but not for Ed as it would seem, because the video is titled Standing Up for Children, Families, and Fair Play.
That's a lie!
We're gonna take this video piece by piece and see
their ability to have kids.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna see transphobia.
Make sure that they have kids of their own one day.
I think that's the whole deal. Let's get into it. Dismantling Hate starts now. Is the most important thing to you having kids?
Future fertility.
I am an outspoken complainer about Danielle Smith. I am, but I do have a thank you to give to her, because if it wasn't for her coming for trans rights, I never would have started this series of Dismantling Hate. My first ever video in this entire series was about Danielle Smith attacking trans kids 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and look where I am now. Still in the same room. Okay, here we go.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm joined by Minister of Justice and Attorney General Mickey Amery to share an important update on our work to protect children and families in Alberta and support women and girls in sport.
We're supporting children except when they're in schools. When they're in schools, they can fend for themselves. Okay.
Today, our government is introducing Bill 9, the Protecting Alberta's Children Statutes Amendment Act. Bill 9 will invoke the Canadian Charter's Notwithstanding clause and
once again, the Government of Alberta is using the Notwithstanding clause to ram through legislation without time for proper debate in the Albertan legislature. And it seems as if this might be a growing trend. If you're not familiar, the Notwithstanding clause essentially just gives the power to the government to do whatever they want. They have the final say, and they can push through legislation on a whim. And that's where we are. We're not surprised, but that's where we are.
To amend and uphold 3 critical pieces of legislation without further court delay or uncertainty. The Health Statutes Amendment Act 2024, the Education Amendment Act 2024, and the Fairness and Safety in Sport Act 2024.
I can't wait until she says the phrase irreparable harm. Do you think she's gonna say it? She better say it. She's gonna say it. The harm be irreparable.
The Notwithstanding clause will apply to the following pieces of legislation.
Look how awkward this ginger looks beside her. Hey, he's just crawling out of his skin. I mean, you can't blame him. I would be too. Can you imagine standing next to this literal monster in a red blazer?
Bill 26, the Health Statute Amendment Act 2024 prohibits both gender reassignment surgery for children under 18 and the provision of puberty blockers and hormone replacement treatments for the purpose of gender reassignment to children under 16. Bill 27, the Education Amendment Act 2024 requires schools to obtain parental consent when a student under 16 years of age wishes to change his or her name or pronouns for reasons related to the student.
For religious reasons?
Gender identity, and requires...
Look at his shifty eyes there in the corner. Ooh. Because the people in the audience are probably groaning at this if it's not a room full of, you know, their rabid base, which it very well might be, and he's just a shifty person in general.
Parental opt-in.
I do love a ginger, though. Let's put that on the record.
Pardon me. And requires parental opt-in consent to teaching on gender identity, sexual orientation, or human sexuality. Bill 29, the Fairness and Safety in Sport Act, requires the governing bodies of amateur competitive sports in Alberta to implement policies that limit participation in women's and girls' sports to those who were born female.
Okay, so she's essentially covering all of her bases for the daily life experience of any given trans person or gender non-conforming person out there. You have healthcare, you have education, and you have sport. There's not really, I was going to say there's the workplace, but the workplace video, the Jordan Peterson law, that's a whole other can of what the f***, a can of something. I'm trying to swear less because in my last video, I swore a lot. It was a nightmare to edit. Let's keep going.
I've heard from families, teachers, athletes, coaches, and young people themselves, and we respect that there are strong feelings on every side of this conversation.
There's strong feelings, and then there's also scientifically backed research and history, of which this government is flying in the face of. The World Health Organization specifically condemns this kind of legislation around gender non-conforming people. But then most folks in these communities just take a step back and say, oh, well, they're infiltrated by the left because everybody who's educated is a leftist, and I wonder why that is. Which also makes sense as to why they're attacking education. Oh, it's just so cyclical. All right.
We have also consulted with medical professionals here and in other jurisdictions and learned how standards of care and best practices to support children and families have evolved with new research over time. As a government, we have a responsibility to provide clarity, a responsibility to protect all children and youth, and a responsibility to give parents, not institutions or courts, the primary role in life-changing decisions about their children. This government does not turn to the notwithstanding clause unless the stakes warrant it. And
just because you say that, like, is that supposed to mean something? Anything that Danielle Smith and her party decides to use the notwithstanding clause for will then warrant it, right? Like, she's saying that as if that just wipes away the use of the notwithstanding clause of yet again taking away rights from Albertans. But she thinks it's warranted. So we're just supposed to take that. And I thought institutions weren't supposed to be in charge of what you did with your body. Danny, I'm confused, girl.
Case, the stakes could not be higher.
Oh, the stakes are high, mama. The stakes are stapled to the ceiling. They are so high. I'm hungry.
This is one of the most consequential actions our government will take during...
Really? Not the legislating back 51,000 teachers a handful of weeks ago? I gotta take a breath.
I'm in office. The notwithstanding clause is part of Canada's system of parliamentary democracy. It exists to balance the power of the courts and the authority of democratically elected governments. By invoking it, we're keeping these decisions in the hands of those who are directly accountable to Albertans.
Except that parents then don't have that choice to provide their children with that necessary and sometimes life-saving healthcare. They don't have that choice anymore because now it's legislation. She's giving us the runaround here, and that's probably why she's stumbling over her words.
These protections can move forward without further court delay or uncertainty.
Because homegirl knows she's running out of time, hopefully.
Measures reflect the views of an overwhelming majority of Albertans, and it is our responsibility.
Like, they can't look at their faces. They cannot think this is the reality of the situation. It might be the voice of the loudest Albertans, but it, in fact, is not even close to the voices of the majority of Albertans. And if somebody legitimately thinks that based off of their daily experiences with other people, I feel really bad for them because I don't come upon any people like that in my life. But our perspectives are biased because that's who we spend our time around. The people that I spend time around don't think that being trans is an abomination. And these folks do. So when I take a step out of my house, my natural assumption is that I think that everybody else around me probably feels like people deserve bodily autonomy. I'm projecting my worldview onto the folks that are around me. And they, in turn, are probably doing the same thing, which tells you a lot about their caucus, mama.
Make sure that they are not overturned. This is not a hypothetical discussion. This suite of legislation is in active litigation right now. At this moment, we have 3 lawsuits working their way through the courts with 1 injunction in place. These lawsuits could take years to resolve, including possible appeals to the Supreme Court. These delays are not acceptable to this government when children are in harm's way. We want every young
What kind of harm, Danielle? Say it, homegirl. Irreparable. She's gonna say it.
To receive the mental health supports, the compassion, and the guidance that they need.
Yeah, because you don't need gender-affirming care. You're sick. You need psychological supports. That's all you need. Being trans is just like depression. It's all in your head. Sit down, snowflake.
home, at school, and in their communities. We also want adults to receive the care and support they need to live the life that they choose.
But then what does that even make the difference? Like, I understand 18 is put in as the age of the majority, probably for a reason, but from a developmental standpoint, 18 isn't really the age where that happens. I don't really understand how the majority of Canada, or at least Alberta, has come to the consensus that 18 is the age of the majority. Because if you're 17 on one day and 18 on the other day, you're telling me that you don't have bodily autonomy for gender affirming care on the last day of your 17th year on this planet in Alberta, but then on the first day of your 18th birthday, somehow you will magically wake up with a more discerning outlook and you'll be able to make that choice. It doesn't make sense to me. In the same way that it doesn't make sense that you're now allowed to legally consume alcohol or cannabis or things like that. I don't know about that. Do you know about that? Let me know in the comments.
Legislation is not about denying care. We cannot and will not.
Except it is about denying care to the extent of which she's already explained.
Take the risk of a child undergoing medical, hormonal, or surgical interventions that could permanently limit or eliminate the choices they may want to make as an adult to have children of their own one day.
It's interesting that it's very heavily grounded in the idea that people need to be able to have kids if they want to. Like, informed consent is important, and let's say a 14-year-old who wants to go on puberty blockers, they won't necessarily have the ability to understand the consequences if they were somehow not able to have children at some point later in their life. But that's also not what puberty blockers do. So the example that I gave just now doesn't work for the consequence, but the mindset is that this is important because people need to be able to have kids. Is having kids more important than the well-being of somebody? No. You should be happy before you have kids. Probably wouldn't be here if more people were fit to be parents.
To young Albertans who are navigating what their identity means through the already difficult process of growing up, you deserve dignity, understanding, and support.
Dignity, understanding, and support in what ways, though? Dignity, understanding, and support only in the ways in which the government decides is appropriate. The government that also thinks that government shouldn't be that involved and that people deserve their own choices and that parents should be in charge for everything except for this. It doesn't make sense. And if something doesn't make sense, it's probably not true. Like, smoking is good for you, of which Danielle Smith has written a column about. I've talked about that in older videos. I'm so tired of looking at this woman's face.
We will never stop working to keep you safe. You belong in Alberta. We firmly believe that.
No, you don't.
We also believe it's our duty to protect you. This legislation is about your future. So when the time comes, you have every opportunity to make the adult decisions that are rightfully yours.
After you've gone through puberty, and then your life experience would be severely affected by that if you don't desist in your trans identity. It's making the quality of life for those people, of which there are thousands, a lot lower. The risk to some do not outweigh the benefits to the most. Like, if people elect to have a hip replacement, we're not going to tell people they can't get a hip replacement because there's the potential that they will regret that hip replacement and they will have complications from that procedure. That just wouldn't make sense. And neither does this.
Alone. Thank you, and I'd like to hand it over to Minister Mickey Amery to provide more details about Bill 9.
Okay, Peter Pan, let's get it. God, I don't understand why she just stands there with a water bottle, like, incessantly sucking on it. I don't know. That sounded crude, what I just said. Just the face. I don't know why she stays there. I guess maybe because they take questions after. It's just very awkward.
Well, thank you very much, Premier, for those very important remarks. I want to start by saying how incredibly proud I am to be part of a government that cares deeply about children and youth.
Oh, God, this ginger bowling ball is proud to be a part of this group. How embarrassing. You know, as a half ginger myself, and as a full lisper myself, I do identify with this man a lot. However, I don't look good in blue, and I think he does. And I think that trans people deserve bodily autonomy at any age with informed consent, and he doesn't. You'll be able to differentiate between the two of us for those key reasons. Okay, deep breath, let's keep going.
We'll take action to protect our children their health, and their well-being when stakes are this high.
Look at her expression right now. What? Why is she looking like that? Is she like projecting like this is serious? Is that what that face means?
As a parent and as an elected official, I believe that we have a duty to protect.
Is this really about you though? Like, I get it. I'm in my YouTube video talking about me, but that's because this is a fucking YouTube video and not provincial legislation, so there's a difference there. But this really doesn't have anything to do with him. Why is he valorizing himself right now when he's, at the end of the day, just the legislature? You know, if he was listening to the majority of constituents, he wouldn't have to overly explain why this is a good idea. But for some reason, he feels the need to provide all of his personal context as to why this is a good thing. Is that done for other things? Maybe it is. It's interesting.
Our children and youth and provide safeguards for their futures so they can grow.
Except for their education. That is so crazy to me.
Learn, and they can mature to make informed decisions.
These people are taking the piss now. Like, is there anything? There's no more new levels of irony to achieve. Oh, hell, I feel like I need to knock on wood because it could get worse. But it also could get better.
Adults. That's why we introduced 3 pieces of legislation last fall to do just that. Protecting all children and youth, ensuring parents know that they are the primary caregivers in their children's lives, and ensuring fair play for women and girls in sport. We've said previously that we're prepared to use every single legal and constitutional.
Will somebody get the man a box of sucrets? He's suffering here. Do we know about that? Sucrets? Do they still come in that plastic case? Loved those when I was a kid. But to be fair, I loved anything that was food related. So that has nothing to do with this. I just needed to pause. I want the questions. I want them to stumble over answering the questions. That's what I'm looking forward to. We'll wrap up with this potato head here in a second, I'm sure.
Available to protect the well-being of young people. And that's why we'll be invoking the Notwithstanding clause in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms,
That's crazy.
the Alberta Bill of Rights, and the Alberta Human Rights Act to these 3 critical pieces of legislation. We believe that this is a necessary measure to ensure that
Just because you believe something doesn't mean it's not true, and people could turn around and say that what I believe doesn't make it true. But I also have like reputable data. That's not just people pulling shit out of their ass anyway.
laws stand without further court delay or uncertainty.
Yeah, because due process and doing things slow and getting people's perspectives and democracy in general is just a waste of time. We're just going to do it to all you people because we know what's best. It's a dictatorship. That's what this is.
Touched upon the lawsuits working their way through the courts.
Yeah, as if this is only because of the lawsuits. Again, the hip replacement surgery. I'm sure somewhere in Alberta, some quack replaced some lady's hip, and he just did a hack job on her, right? And she's suing him right now, and she's probably winning, and the government of Alberta is probably paying through the teeth for her rusty hip or whatever happened that's wrong. Where's the anti-hip replacement legislation? Huh? I feel like it stands to reason that there might be more hip replacement surgeries in Alberta than there are gender-affirming surgeries in people under the age of 18 in Alberta. I feel like there's probably more. We'll do it like this. If you've had a hip replacement, you let me know in the comments. Well, no, people under the age of 18 aren't permitted to look at my channel. I take it back, never mind. But I don't take back the hip replacement baddies sounding off in the comments. Let me know if you're here, girl.
When it is children at the center of these court challenges and decisions, we have a moral imperative.
But will you tell us what the court cases are about? Maybe I'll look it up after, but we have our plates full here right now.
Forward in the best interests of children and their futures. Before I wrap up, I want to be clear what the Notwithstanding clause is and why it's a tool that
Bestie, we know what this is. We've gotten the dissertation from this man before of what it is because it's been used now several times.
Legislatures use.
Okay.
The Notwithstanding clause is integral to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and a vital provincial constitutional right.
Give us another adjective.
It's intended to preserve the ability of elected legislatures to make final policy choices.
It says I can do whatever I want.
Interests of the public. We've heard from Albertans, and they expect us to deliver on our mandate to protect young people and their...
Who have you heard from? Like, can you point them out? Are they here in the audience right now? Do they have red hats on? Do they have neck beards? Because I'm guessing they do. How about you talk to anybody else? Have you gone into any urban center? Or are we just rolling around in the farm fields asking the people running the tractors what they think about trans kids? When all of the trans kids from those communities and all the queer people from those communities have been out of there for years already. Queer people go to the urban centers. That's why I'm here in an urban center. If I had to drive on a highway directly through a field to go to a town of 15,000 people one more time, I was gonna lose it.
Families will not apologize for putting our children first. Thank you.
Thank
They're
you.
kind of like putting words in our mouth that we're asking for them to apologize for it. No, we don't care what you say because what you say means nothing. In fact, you just make stuff up. What we want you to do is to give people bodily autonomy. We've been through this. I'm getting redundant now. I think it's the questions.
We'll now enter the media Q&A.
Nice.
First, just a reminder for those on the line and in the room that this press conference, the remarks, and any QA related to the bill are under embargo. We do not expect the bill to be tabled until Wednesday, and the embargo is in effect until the bill is tabled. I'm happy.
Echo, what does embargo mean?
Did that answer your question?
Not even close.
Thanks for your feedback.
You're welcome.
Is there any questions about the embargo lift and the timing of that following the conclusion of the press conference? And I encourage you guys to reach
Breast conference.
to me directly. Well, yes, I'm happy to answer those after the press conference. We'll get into the Q&A for now.
I love that people are already interrupting. I feel like this is going to be heated.
That the embargo is still in effect. We'll start off, of course, with questions in the room before making our way to the phones. One question, one follow-up as per usual, and I'll see a show of hands for questions in the room. Gotcha. We'll start with Emmanuel, and then we'll go to Morgan.
In the briefing notes we received this morning, it was said that the government's position was that by invoking the notwithstanding clause, every court challenge would be basically ended. How is that the case? Because in Saskatchewan, there is a court challenge on a pronoun bill, and even when they invoked the notwithstanding clause, the Supreme Court said yes.
Look at her lips right now. What? It's like a perfect straight line across. Homegirl's pressed, but she's wearing pearls. So she means business. Yeah, Mo, the guy who is the premier of Saskatchewan, I believe. I don't remember the last name. Or no, that is his last name? I don't know. Danny's bestie.
So why do you think that this case in Alberta here is different than what happened in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. It's our understanding, it's our position that invoking the notwithstanding clause is the end of this, the litigation process.
That's why she has water, because he has so many mouse sounds right now. I want to do something that doesn't demonetize my video. That's
Existing 3 challenges to this particular case. We know that the Supreme Court is dealing with a number of questions as it relates to the notwithstanding clause and whether courts can still weigh in once the notwithstanding clause is invoked. But we don't have a decision on that yet, and we are confident that
So we have to shove this through before any of that happens, so we at least get a head start on all of this non-democratic nonsense.
Or will do the right thing and uphold parliamentary supremacy. The notwithstanding clause is a tool that exists within...
Like, I know he said parliamentary supremacy, but the word supremacy coming out of the mouth of a man who's like borderline albino, I can say that, okay? Whew, yeah, it's just, you better wipe that brow. It's
harder to allow provinces and the federal government to invoke the clause when and if needed, and it's our position that that would be the end of the litigation.
Good luck with that.
Premier and Minister, you can weigh in if you want, but what was the reasoning behind this decision to invoke the notwithstanding clause? Did you only do it because you thought you were going to lose the court challenges?
Well, look, no, we're very confident in our position. We always have been, we always will be. But there is a process in place that can take years to resolve. We know that the courts may take a number of
years that the UCP do not have. Thank God.
We know that we're in litigation on any number of cases that go through the court system and take a long time to be addressed. In the meantime, there are significant risk of harm to our young people in this province, and we need to take action immediately to address that.
An Alberta Court of King's Bench judge ruled that there would be significant harm if the bill was enacted. So now you're saying that there's also significant harm if the bill. What's your position on it?
So the Court of King's Bench invoked a temporary injunction until the actual case was heard. But we're looking at medical experts all across Canada and in other jurisdictions who have addressed this issue as well. That we know that, for example, in Sweden, for example, we know that there is.
He's going to talk about the CAS report, isn't he?
Their health authority concluded that given the current evidence that exists, the risk of puberty blockers and gender-affirming treatments outweigh the benefits for young people. And so we know that from authorities both within Canada and abroad.
Why would the first one you talk about then be from Sweden? Is it that our conceptualization of Sweden is that of like a strong healthcare supported background or country because they're socialist? And the red one is currently campaigning to privatize healthcare, which is the opposite, but they're still trying to take advantage of the way that people think highly of socialist healthcare, but yet it's not good when it comes to Alberta. Holy shit. How do these people sleep at night? The amount of cognitive dissonance they have to be able to participate in would literally put me 6 feet under. I just can't. But I have anxiety, so that's probably why.
There is risk to young folks in continuing these treatments, and we prefer to err on the side of caution and take action immediately.
Awesome. And we'll go to Morgan and then to Michelle.
I think Premier and also for the
We're not going to err on the side of caution, though, with like properly funded public education. When it has to do with 750,000 children, they're not going to err on the side of caution. But when it comes to probably when you get down to it, simply a handful of trans kids that are searching for gender-affirming care in the province of Alberta, that's probably, I don't know, less than 50. I also wouldn't be surprised if it was like 20. This is sad.
We've heard some concerns from Albertans that are wondering why the government is using the notwithstanding clause so frequently. A lot of people were unfamiliar with it. Now they're learning more about it, and they're worried about this being always the move that they perceive the government goes to when things aren't.
Yeah, he's the justice guy, so he's probably going to answer all the notwithstanding clause questions.
Their way. So what is your response to those Albertans that are concerned about the frequency of the notwithstanding clause?
She just motioned to him.
And the use of it.
Well, let's talk about the frequency for just a moment. The notwithstanding clause was part of the Canadian Charter in 1982. Since that time...
Yes, and you've also used it 2 times in the span of a month? And has it been used 2 times since its origination? I guess we'll find out. I just have to shut up and stop talking.
It's been invoked once in the early 2000s. Once.
And you've done it twice in 1 month. That's the frequency that she's talking about, you meathead.
And then again for these bills. I would argue that it's not used frequently. In fact, we very, very much carefully assess each and every time that we need to use this. But the fact of the matter is this: at the end of the day, I'll stand by this. We're prepared, again, to use every single legal and constitutional tool to make sure that the health
we did it, and we're going to do it again, is what he just said.
Of our children are protected. And when you have medical experts all across the world arguing that there is...
Except for the World Health Organization. The largest one says no. But they're all libtards.
A significant detriment to the development of young people. This is one of those things that we think is an appropriate use of the notwithstanding clause. We'll stand behind that.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just add, and I've said it before, that if the courts are going to behave irresponsibly, then they should expect that legislatures are going to respond. And
if they don't do what we want, we're going to shove it through anyway.
Declaring a charter right to possess child pornography, as they did a couple of weeks ago, that to me...
I'll make a note of it. We'll go back. That's a really important red herring. Crazy, if true. Okay.
As a demonstration that the courts are not consistent with the values that Albertans or Canadians have. It was a 5-4 court decision, so the court isn't even in full agreement of that.
So what she's probably defining as CP is probably not what we're thinking of when we hear CP. Not that there's a level of severity, but there is also a level of severity. It's all bad, but some is worse, right?
decision. And what we're observing is rather than deal with the cases at hand, and in that case, two horrendous pedophiles with a graphic.
Do you just, like, okay, if what she's talking about is true, then that's important and that's wild. And there probably should have been a separate press conference for just what she's talking about, because I don't know what she's talking about. Do you know what she's talking about? Let me know if you know what she's talking about in the comments. I'd love to know. I'll look into it. But the fact that she's using it here and not necessarily aligning pedophiles with trans people, but for this to be the example, it's just far too convenient as a fear tactic. That's what this feels like to me.
Awful images of children. The court decided to pluck a hypothetical case out of the air in order to strike down mandatory sentencing. So I would say that the court should begin to...
Is the hypothetical that you have pictures of your child in the bathtub from when they were 5? Is that the hypothetical? I really hope I'm not right. I hope this idiocy isn't that predictable. Please somebody tell me I'm wrong.
Fact that if they are going to make decisions like that, they're going to see more legislatures take the action that we did. We just simply don't believe that with the evidence changing as it is, we don't believe it's in the best interest of children to delay for years before a court ultimately makes a decision. We want to make sure that kids are right to be able to have children of their own.
Yeah, we don't need to wait to fully be informed. But the kids do.
One day is preserved.
And then my follow-up, Premier, for you. We just heard from some folks outside that feel that this legislation and the use of the Notwithstanding Clause is not in the best interest of kids. And we heard from young people, we heard from trans folks who were once young people and accessed this gender-affirming care. So what would your message be to them who say that this is hurting them and hurting the future of children?
Well, kids have to go through puberty in order to be able to have kids. That's just the way it is.
That's the most important thing to her. I am genuinely asking you watching this video right now, is the most important thing to you having kids? My audience, though, were the libtards. Your answers are gonna be no. And is that the problem? Is that this, like, kind of conservative Christian nationalism dogma is having kids? That's the whole point. Everything has to do with having kids. And that's the most important thing that you'll do in your entire life. My God, that's sad, but that's where a lot of this value thing comes from. Is having kids the most important thing too? Because it's not for me. I'd love to have kids. I would be a good parent. I'm not sold either way. If it came down to me having gender affirming care or having kids, like, you have to get yourself right before you bring people into this world. But we do have reason to believe that she wants more uninformed, easily manipulatable people coming into this world. Can't we give the planet a break? I'm pretty sure the human race will be fine if we went from 9 billion to 8 billion. Like, sure, we would lose a little bit of diversity, but these people hate diversity anyway, so what the hell?
Becoming sexually mature means. And we want to make sure that at the age of 16, when they're old enough to be able to make these decisions for themselves and understand the full consequences of it, they can begin that journey. But we know that when we have all kinds of laws on those who are under the age of 15. We don't allow them to smoke. We don't allow them to drive alone. We don't allow them to do drugs. We don't allow them to sign contracts. They can't get a credit card. They can't even go on a field trip to the zoo without getting their parents' permission.
Sure.
So if we accept that we have to be able to have a certain level of rigor over those who are minor.
Girl, not rigor. So then can parents decide that their child will be able to get gender affirming care under the age of 16? Is that what she's explaining right now? It would be a good thing if that's what she was explaining right now, but it almost makes this even more weirdly complicated, because then previous to this, people without their parents' permission under the age of 16 would be able to access gender affirming care. And the cases of that has to be 3. Maybe those are the 3 that are working their way through the court right now that he was talking about earlier. I'm missing something. I don't know what it is. We're going to keep going.
15 years of age and younger, then we have to have that rigor. And if they are contemplating making permanent changes to their ability to have kids, permanent changes to their body, those decisions have to be made when they're mature enough to understand.
Girl, if you really want kids, go out there and adopt some kids. I understand there's a difference. I don't have a uterus, so I'm never going to know what it's like to carry my own child through a pregnancy. It's probably amazing. It's probably an affirming, life-altering, gratifying experience. Is it more important than being who you are? I don't know. I would say no, but I don't know.
Consequences of that. So I think that we're on solid ground with the parents who are concerned about their kids. We're on solid ground with the general public, and that's the reason why
You're really not, though. The general public? No, absolutely not. You're not on solid ground. And I really feel like she knows it too.
They decided to take this action.
Awesome. Can I see a show of hands again? Awesome. We'll go to Michelle, then to Sean.
Premier, your party supporters place great value on parental rights, for example, over what a child learns in school or even what vaccines they receive. The parents of a transgender minor are involved in their care along with a physician. So why do parental rights not matter when it comes to the health of a transgender minor?
Okay, so exactly what I just talked about. So her answer then previously doesn't make sense.
Say that because there's certain decisions that only that child can make. I don't believe that it's right for anyone to make a decision to sterilize a child except for that child when they understand the consequences of it. And that's part
and puberty blockers are not sterilization. And sterilization is completely different from gender affirming care in the majority of cases. Anyhow, we're using this language as a fear tactic because sterilization is something that will perk up the dog ears of people and go, ooh, sterilization bad. And if they don't have trans people in their life, they're not going to understand what any of that entails. Ugh.
And why we believe at the age of 16, there's been some jurisprudence around when children can start making medical decisions on their own. That may be when they begin taking puberty blockers or other hormones. And age 18, when they're full adults, is when they can engage in surgery. Those are some of the decisions that we've made based on some of the emerging evidence that is out there, some of the changes that we're seeing in jurisdictions around the world, and we think it strikes the right balance.
But people would argue that, for instance, withholding a vaccine, like a measles vaccine, for example, from a child is equally, harmful to the child. So I'm not really sure what the difference is here.
Yeah, out here in Alberta, if you're not familiar, and I'm jealous of you if you're not familiar. Yeah, we're riddled with the measles out here, thanks to this woman who is making access to those vaccines limited. In addition to the influenza vaccine, only technically can you get your hands on them, but it sounds like it'll be a pretty laborious experience if you want to do so. Homegirl is stuttering. And roly-poly-oly over here doesn't know what to say either. Oh, the girls are gagged.
In terms of care for a transgendered minor that is done in coordination with their parents and a physician. Yeah. And withholding, a parent deciding not to vaccinate their child.
Well, I think it's a pretty big difference. One may,
You don't think getting measles as a young person might place you under irreparable harm? Oh, Danielle Smith. Where's the R word now? No, sorry. I word. Irreparable. I was thinking of something else.
Dealing with here today, having physical surgery that prevents you from being able to have children is I think a whole...
Is that really the only thing, though? Is that the only point? You can't have kids. You can't have kids. It doesn't mean that you can't have kids permanently or indefinitely or every single time. Depending on what care you are receiving, you would be able to have kids. It's not like the moment you step into the gender affirming clinic, you can't have kids anymore. Depends on what you do.
To difference.
People under 18 could never have surgery.
Well,
it's the puberty blocker.
Well, no, there are mastectomies that were taking place under the age of 18, yes, and we were watching. We think those kinds of surgeries should only happen at the age of 18 and older, and we also looking at the international evidence that's emerging that we believe that children should go through puberty before halting it so that they can make sure that they have kids of their own one day. If you don't become sexually mature, you can't have kids, and that's what we're trying to preserve.
Why? It's weird that she's that concerned with that.
So you're saying that these court challenges can take years and years, can being the operative word. So I'm wondering, what's the threshold then for deciding that these potential legal delays justify overriding fundamental rights?
It's a good question.
Well, the simple answer to that is the detrimental harm to our children. in the meantime.
Detrimental? Come on, give us irreparable.
But these are claims that have been filed by groups, some operating within Alberta, some operating elsewhere, who are challenging the three statutes that we brought in, the three bills that we brought in the ones that we mentioned earlier. But the detrimental impact to children necessitates that we take immediate action right now.
So then what's the detrimental harm of pronouns?
Yeah, he did not answer that at all.
If you're saying that these pieces of legislation, you're trying to prevent these harm to students, children, trans folks, what's the harm of pronouns then?
Well, a number of different issues. I mean, we know that children are dealing with gender identity issues all across this province, and we know that...
But now tell me, why is the Minister of Justice talking about identity?
We know that parents have been asking to become more involved and more informed about what is happening. We've always said that parental choice is absolutely paramount for us.
But again, he's not actually talking about the harm. He's not talking about the harm. He's not answering the question.
It's important for me as well, and I want to know what's happening.
We don't care about you. I'm sorry. We don't.
With my kids, both within their school and concerning their health. This, I think, is a common sentiment all across our province. Our parents
almost common sense. Answer the question, Google.
Are asking to be more involved, and this is a move in the direction to make sure that parents are heard.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think when we started...
I love that when she wants to talk, she like shoves him out of the way. She doesn't say anything. She's like, move over, Pinocchio. It's mommy's turn.
We mentioned a story that appeared in French CBC, never got reported in English, but French CBC went into a gender clinic with a child actress who was 14, who was able to, on 10 minutes, get testosterone without parental consent, without knowing what her history was. Those are the kind of things that we don't want happening in Alberta. If children are going to go down this pathway,
which is what she's saying is fair. You need informed consent. And getting testosterone in under 10 minutes is probably not involving informed consent. But there is a nuance between the two extremes of which we will no longer have access to if this passes.
Begins with pronouns or moves to puberty blockers or ultimately goes on to surgery. We don't want there to be...
Yeah, so this is the slippery slope fallacy.
Disconnect with their families on that. And so that's a part of the reason why. For those under the age of 15, when their parents are the legal guardian, they will have to be informed and approve. And then at age 16 and over, they will just have to be informed.
All right, thank you. We're going to take a couple questions from the phones now. Operator, could you put through our first caller, please?
Hi, Premier. I'm just curious specifically on Bill 29, what your guys' reasoning was for feeling that you need to invoke the notwithstanding clause in this situation.
I think that was sports.
Fairness and sport, yeah, most certainly. Thank you for that question. You know, we've heard from parents, from students, from young people all across our province.
Like, I know he's been asked the same question over and over, but it's getting really repetitive and boring. I'm losing steam, but we'll hear him out, I guess.
Especially and in particular, women and girls in sport.
So is that the only is that a valid rationale though? If you hear something from people, then that requires trampling on the rights of other people? Is that how democracy works? Because I'm pretty sure that's not how democracy works.
Well, that the situation has been communicated to us that women and children, women and girls, feel that this creates an unfair scenario for them. It discourages them from participating in sport.
We've talked about that at length on this channel. Does Homegirl have her phone out? That would be really funny if she did.
We know that folks women and girls that are participating in sports want to be competitive with one another. They want to be able to participate
with one another. We're excluding trans women. That's all this is. He's just showing his turf self. Trans exclusionary radical feminist. But if you made it this far, you already knew that.
In these and are free from, dealing with the situation of biological males participating within female sports. We know that we've had I think when we announced the Bill 29 as well as Bill 27, 26, we had validators who had been negatively impacted by this as well. amendment that we're bringing
You mean people like Riley Gaines, sore losers who couldn't accept the fact that they lost to somebody who happened to be trans? And if they lost to somebody who wasn't trans, they wouldn't have anything to complain about? So you heard from sore losers. Okay.
We'll deal with all of these bills that were introduced last spring, and that's particularly because we want to deal with it in one sweeping amendment. We're not going to come back each and every time to.
That doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good to me. Does it sound good to you?
The notwithstanding clause on another bill, if and when the need arises. This is needed now. It's needed to be a sweeping.
But okay, at the end of the day, is sports really that serious? I don't know if it is. I'm not a sports person. The closest I get to sports is drag. And anyway, is sports really that serious? Because to me, sports is just like fun and community and exercising at the end of the day. So why wouldn't the inclusion of everybody be more important than the alleged fairness of including everybody? It just, at the end of the day, it just seems exclusionary. And at that point, it doesn't even matter the reason. It's just shitty behavior.
That addresses all three of these acts, and that's why it's coming forward in this amendment act here.
Yeah. And I might also say, when we talk about the world evolving, I'll just note that the International Olympic Committee is probably months away from deciding to ban transgender women in female Olympic events. And so it's a very active conversation in the sporting.
But why only the transgender women?
If there were no difference between boys and girls and men and women, we wouldn't have a women and girls category at all. And so I think that's what we're trying to return to is let's make sure that we're protecting the female athletes.
But so if we're running with their train of thought, all biological males are stronger than all biological females, meaning that trans men would need protection in men's sports, of which has not been mentioned once. So is this actually caring about women and girls? There's more going on here than that. We're almost done.
Ensure that there are co-ed or all gender categories so that everybody has the opportunity to participate in sport. But let's have a hybrid approach so that women and girls sport can be protected too.
We'll go to Jeremy for our last question.
Premier, wondering, obviously the use of the notwithstanding clause is a very serious step to take. What rights do you need it to override? Is it specifically sort of the legal right for groups to fight back against this legislation, or are there other rights that you need the notwithstanding clause in this circumstances with these three bills to override?
Well, I had hoped that we would have been able to go to court on this, and because I firmly believe that Section 1 of the Charter gives us the latitude as a government to balance rights and to make sure that we're making decisions that are minimally intrusive in a free and democratic society. That's what Section 1 allows you to do. It does allow you to make certain changes and pass certain laws. But the problem that we have is that we have watched a court process where if they put an injunction in place and prevent these laws from being enacted, it could potentially be years before they're resolved. And we're just wanting to make sure that no other kids make premature decisions that they might ultimately regret. We want to support children when they're old enough to understand the consequences of those decisions. And so that's why we're trying to be minimally intrusive in those decisions. But we do know that when a child is 15 and under, that is way too young to be making decisions that'll affect their future fertility. So that's a judgment that we've made, and we'll watch and see if there is any additional commentary that happens in the court.
And follow up, we heard during the tech briefing, and perhaps this is for Minister Amory, but we heard during the tech briefing that there is, the use of the notwithstanding clause through the Charter comes with a 5-year time limit. That might not be the same case with the Alberta Bill of Rights. Can you explain the difference there and what the intention is as far as how long this will last?
Yeah, most certainly. The use of the notwithstanding clause, Section 33 of the Charter, is for a 5-year term. The notwithstanding clauses or the exclusionary clauses in the Bill of Rights and the Alberta, the Human Rights Act will be...
It's a lot of us while talking about human rights coming from the Minister of Justice.
will be permanent.
Awesome. And that'll
Ooh,
conclude
that little weird grin when he said permanent. This is the end now, right?
press conference. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah. All right. Girly wigs, that brings us to the end of this video. Thanks for hanging out with me. I really hope that you'll let me know what you think in the comments. I've honestly been trying to stay away from my commentary, specifically in Alberta, because I burnt out there a little bit while talking about the teacher strike, but I'm back into it. I'm gonna refer back to my notes about the few things that they mentioned in this conference that seemed like it might be worthwhile to dig into a little bit. Yeah, I appreciate you for being here. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, especially if you made it all the way to the end. Please also feel free to share these videos or any of my content with people that you think will enjoy it, because we have to organize and support each other as much as possible, because this is just unadulterated filth. Anyway, thanks for getting to the end, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.